when you look at the national average savings account rates are still pretty low, less than 1%.
Why do smart people do dumb things with their money?
The almighty dollar, a symbol of our hard work, dreams, and the promise of a better tomorrow. But where should one keep this cherished treasure?
Question: where do you store your money? It's a question that is currently getting attention. And when you look at the state of the world, rightfully so. The general consensus is in a state of panic. We see the stock market on a decline, and most people would agree we are heading towards a true recession.
So we do have a high risk of recession.
It is an unprecedented time where bank failures are happening without even a true recession.
This morning, the government is deploying emergency measures to stop a potential banking crisis.
So again, I ask, where do you store your money? Now, before we go too far, let's rewind back in time. The dot-com bubble,
Internet stocks drove it.
the great financial crisis, pandemics, banking crisis. Over the last 25 years, we have seen historic events that one day when we tell generations to come, they won't believe it actually happened. From 2000 to 2003, there was almost a 50% loss in the market, causing millions of dollars to be lost and people losing their jobs, homes, and retirement savings. But this was just the beginning. The great financial crisis. In 2008, there was almost a 40% loss in 1 year. From 2008 to 2012, we saw over 400 banks go insolvent, and the Federal Reserve saving Bank of America, JP Morgan, Citigroup, and Morgan Stanley. And let me ask you a pretty profound question. What would have happened in one of these crises if you actually needed your funds in one of these scenarios? The crisis pushed unemployment to over 10% in 2010. So you were at a place where you needed funds to save your home, you needed funds to provide for your family, but the market gave you a 50% loss, a loss of your home, and a job layoff. So the next question you'd be asking is, well, if the market isn't the place to store capital, where should we store our money? Where do we store our money that's safe, where we can have access to it when we need it available for emergencies and opportunities? Well, your first thoughts are thinking that I'm going to say a bank account. But then you instantly think about how fickle banks are and how much you do not trust them. With banks operating on fractional lending, banks going under left and right, and bank runs constantly happening, you think, how can I possibly trust the bank? How can I trust leaving large amounts of money inside the banking system? Not just that, but when you think about it, we always hear the saying, savers are losers. Now, that saying doesn't come from saving money is dumb. That saying comes from saving money in a vehicle like the bank. You lose out to things like inflation and compounding interest. And the crazy part is that small amount your dollars do grow, you still have to pay Uncle Sam. So yes, it may be liquid, but is this really the place we want to store our capital in regards to emergencies and opportunities? Because of this, I know Bitcoin Maximuses right now are screaming Bitcoin. It's a digital gold. It hedges against inflation and the government can't touch it. Well, I'm not here to argue these points because there are some valid points here. And learning about blockchain, crypto, and Bitcoin, I think is a really smart play. But we have to ask ourselves, do we want to store our safe money in an asset that can lose 20% in one day, or 70 to 80 or sometimes even 90% in any given time frame? Bitcoin seems to be a great store value for hedging many things such as the US dollar, CBDCs, the dollar no longer being the world reserve currency, and safety against the government. So on the other side, the smart money is saying treasuries. It's safe, it's somewhat liquid, and it's backed by the government. And to be quite frank, if I had to say a place currently that gives the most safety, I would probably agree with you. Today, it likely gives one of your best banks for your bucks. But let's ask the question, what about a year ago? Rates were at maybe 1%. So this asset class only makes sense in certain environments. Now, some of you may be like Grant Cardone that say you should put all of your money into real estate, which again, he has some good points. It likely will appreciate. It's an asset you can touch. If done right, it has cash flow and tax advantages. But this is a very skill-based asset class where you have to know what you are doing. Alternatively, you could do things like syndications, where you invest in projects that have been vetted by other experts. When that happens, you reap the rewards of their education and actions. But with all that be said, you can still lose money and or be scammed. Now, I'm a huge fan of real estate, as I am in crypto. I actually own both. But again, Are these vehicles your safe storage of money when it comes to emergencies and opportunities? Well, when you think about it, real estate and Bitcoin are the opportunity. And for emergencies, I think we all could agree that no is the answer. When you start to look at real estate as a safe place to store capital, real estate's great for cash flow, but real estate is dead money that is tied up in equity, unless you are able to sell or refinance or get a HELOC, which are all decent topics of conversation. Or you can fall into the camp of someone like Alex Hormozy that says you should just invest back into your business and, more importantly, yourself, pouring into your skills, knowledge, and education. Now, I do agree with Alex. Investing in yourself, your skills, knowledge, and education is the most powerful investment you could ever make. As he quotes, "It goes up in value, no one can take it from you. They compound all other investments, and you end up doubling down on the one asset you hold forever, you." I honestly couldn't agree more with this. But if we talk about investing in ourselves, again, we are the opportunity. And from a storage of capital, we can't just store it inside of us. That's just weird. And if an emergency happens, you can't just literally and physically print money out of your mouth to Johnny on the spot. That is also weird. So again, the question isn't what do we invest in? The question is, where do we store our safe capital for emergencies and opportunities, already known as the investment? Well, what if I told you there was such a thing where we can store money safely, it grows, it is liquid, and you can use that same dollar twice to go invest in opportunities like yourself, your business, crypto, and real estate? What if I told you didn't have to choose anymore between storing it in one place where you can save versus investing? What if there was an asset where you can do both? Most assets are an or asset, which means you invest in your business or the market. You invest in real estate or put it in the bank. What if there was an asset you can contribute to that allowed you to invest into yourself, your business, real estate, and store money in a vehicle that amplifies all other things in your life? Well, let's talk about this asset. It's an asset that nobody else is talking about. It's the asset that, in my opinion, is the greatest asset to store capital in. It is also, in my opinion, the safest place to store capital, but is at the same time the asset that'll make some of you turn this video off once you hear its name. But then at the same time, you hear corporations, big banks, politicians, and people like Disney, Ray Kroc, Oprah Winfrey, Pampered Chef, Chase Bank, the Rockefellers, all store their money in this asset. So then you become curious. What if I told you this asset had tax advantages, is safe, liquid, grows, compounds, has creditor protection, it's private, so the government can't take it from you, and nonetheless even know you have it? It isn't exposed to market loss, and you can have your dollars in this asset while also having your dollars in things like business, real estate, and opportunities at the same exact time, giving your dollars multiple jobs. If I told you an asset like this existed, would you want it? I'm gonna assume you're nodding your head yes. And that is exactly why so many wealthy people have their money stored here. Even though the wealthy have their money stored here, it isn't just for the wealthy. This is an asset class that even the general population can take advantage of as well. The problem is it becomes demonized by people like Dave Ramsey and financial planners, the godfathers of the middle class. Also, it isn't promoted in the public because big banks and institutions, they want to control your money. They do not want you to know about this secret asset the wealthy know about. It's all part of the puppet masters and elites' plans to tell you one thing and do something completely different. Think about it. We all know the Rockefellers have a massive influence in running this world, and they have used this for hundreds of years to keep generational wealth inside of their family. We also know the Rockefellers were one of the few to help create the Federal Reserve, among others who have big ties and relations to some of the top banks in today's world. They yell, "Store your money in the system so I can control your funds," and then lend it out 10 times over again. And then at the same time, they store massive amounts of their capital in this asset class. That is truly the greatest asset to store capital, and they know it too. So, what is this asset class? Simply, it's life insurance. Life insurance. Some of you right now may be scratching your head wondering how those two words have any correlation to storing and growing your capital. Life insurance is made for when you die. How does that have anything to do with my money? Well, what most don't know, when life insurance is designed a specific way, it gives you specific benefits that other life insurance does not give. This life insurance that we're referring to is specifically designed to optimize your wealth and a place of storage for your capital. You store your money in the specifically designed life insurance contract, and it compounds over time. you have access to it, and you can access it tax-free. How it works is you are able to store your dollars in a contract as a place to warehouse your money over time. And as time goes on, it continues to grow. And then when you want access to it, the life insurance will give you a collateralized loan against it to use for other activities such as your business, real estate, and income producing activities. In other words, opportunities, and if needed, for emergencies. In reality, you can use this for whatever you wanted to. In my opinion, opportunities and emergencies are really the only two ways you should be using this. But by receiving a policy loan against your contract, you are able to receive tax advantages and never interrupt the compounding growth on your contract. Usually how we're used to operating our funds is we take our dollars, we store it in the bank, then we take a withdrawal, and then we go deploy that capital. The money is gone from the bank, and then your bank balance is reduced by the amount that you withdrew. But the wealthy operate differently. They learn to never spend principal, because once you spend the principal, you're now receiving less returns. So instead, they collateralize everything. They collateralize their home, their assets, business, their brokerage account, and most importantly, you guessed it, their life insurance. See, when you collateralize something, you can leave the principal alone, allow it to keep growing, and still utilize that same dollar to go deploy in other assets using the money that the lender gave you. You could actually do this with the CD if you wanted to go to a bank. It's just not something anybody talks about. The lender that we'll be talking about in this scenario is the life insurance company. You see, life insurance is a powerful collateralized asset because your money grows and compounds. You have access to it, but the beautiful part about it is it's private and it's off the grid. The government, the banks, the creditors, they don't know you have it. It's a contract between you and the insurance company. You don't have to share it with the IRS or anybody else. Even when you are applying for kids' FAFSA, when it comes to college, you don't have to disclose that you have this private contract. So we have this asset that's growing, that can be collateralized. You have access to it. It has tax advantages. And once you put $1 in, you can't lose that dollar, as it is not exposed to market risk and it has contractual guarantees. You may now be having recency bias and ask, what happens if the insurance company collapses? You've been thinking about it after all these banks that have been collapsing. Well, honestly, that's a great question, but here are the facts. Banks operate on fractional reserve lending, which means they only have to have 1/10 of their reserves on the books at any point in time, which causes turmoil, lack of liquidity, and bank runs. On the other hand, life insurance companies have to have dollar for dollar access and reserves at all times. From 2008 to 2012, over 400 banks went under, and in that same time period, there were less than 15 insurance companies that did. And those insurance companies were all subpar companies. You only want to use A-rated companies, the best of the best, that have been around for over 100 years, have made it through Great Depressions, wars, and pandemics. And worst case is if somehow the insurance companies did collapse, which is essentially nil to none odds when we are using the right insurance company. Every state has a fund to help people get back to whole if something worst case scenario were to happen. It's like having insurance on insurance, and or another insurance carrier would likely just pick up the books and the balance sheet to make you whole again. It's the same concept like some of these other banks are buying other banks currently. I can confidently say that life insurance is the safest place on the entire planet to store your capital when it is done correctly. So when people ask or other influencers are tweeting about it and saying, "Where do you store your money today?" you now have an answer for them. But wait, there's more. If it didn't already get any better than that, the most fundamental piece of the entire strategy is there's a death benefit still attached to this strategy. You now have a way to pass down generational wealth to your family, benefit, charity, foundation, church, or trust when you die and pass away. This contract is forever until you die. This is exactly what the Rockefellers have been doing and have always done, using 3 profound tools together: life insurance, trusts, and foundations to keep generational wealth in the family, give extremely generously, keep Uncle Sam out of the picture or to at least a bare minimum, while at the same time having your money protected and have the ability to access it to use for wealth building in your business and assets to keep growing the family's net worth. And we wonder how the rich keep getting richer and the poor keep getting poorer. It has everything to do with what we know and the education we consume. If you want to learn more about how this concept works, subscribe to the channel and learn everything about life insurance and how you can use it as a place to store capital, be more efficient with your money, and leave a legacy to this world.